Please be seated. God gives and God takes away. Blessed be the name of God. How best to memorialize someone who lived his life in his own way, was a beloved iconoclast who paved his own road and then roared down that road, regardless of what was in front of him or behind him, living life at his own pace, loudly. How best to honor Gilbert Gottfried and to bring comfort to his family and to say goodbye to a one-of-a-kind person who would, I'm sure, rather be anywhere but here. There is no way to memorialize Gilbert appropriately because appropriate was not in his vocabulary. Nevertheless, we shall try. I'm David Komorowski, a name that Gilbert could not pronounce and would not remember. He would just know me as the rabbi from his podcast that bore his name. And I am, unlike Gilbert, who sang like one, a real rabbi. And today we mourn Gilbert Gottfried and remember him within the context of Jewish tradition. This weekend sees the confluence of Passover and Easter. Tomorrow being Good Friday, remember another Jew taken too soon. And when we think of Passover and stories told around the Seder table, it is very much like Gilbert Gottfried. The same stories over and over again. A 1-minute story dragged out to 45 with a twist ending. We remember Gilbert lovingly today, and we join our hearts together to give comfort and strength to Dara and Lily and Max and Karen and the entire family. Mourning is a time filled with many emotions and memories, bitter and sweet. We are grateful that Gilbert is no longer in pain, and yet we grieve for the loss of who he was in life and is no more. That's not him, is it? It's probably a cameo request. So our service will include a few psalms and prayers linking Gilbert's life to the millennia-old tradition of the Jewish people and to the eternity of God. And we will also, of course, hear loving remembrances from people who were close to Gilbert. The poet Chana Senesh wrote that there are stars up above, so far away we only see their light long, long after the star itself is gone. And so it is with people that we love. Their memories keep shining ever brightly, though their time with us on earth is done. And the stars that light up the darkest night, those are the lights that guide us. As we live our days, these are the ways we remember. The 23rd Psalm. Adonai ro'i lo echsar binot deshe yarbitzeini al mei menuchot yanahaleni. Nafshi yeshovev yancheni v'ma'agleit tzedek lema'an shemo. Gam ki elech begeit sal mavet lo ira ra ki ata imadi. Shivtecha umisha antecha heman yanachamuni. Ta'aroch lefanai shulchan neged tzorarai dishantav Hashemen roshi kosi revaya. Ach tov v'chesed yirdefuni kol yemei chayai. V'shavti beveit Adonai le'orech yamim. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou hast preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. That psalm speaks of walking through the valley of the shadow of death, which we often interpret to mean what happens after someone close to us has died. All life is lived in the shadow of death and loss. And while Gilbert's death seemed sudden, it was not a surprise to those closest to him, those who cared for him lovingly, physically and spiritually, his wife and children and sister and close friends and in-laws. Gilbert lived in the shadow of death for too long, and a life lived in endless pain is not a life that much. And so we are grateful for the 67 brief years shared with Gilbert and that he shared with us. Like the stars that are not seen at night, Gilbert's star will continue to shine brightly. But beyond the cameos and the TikToks and the characters, Gilbert Gottfried was a real live human being with loved ones and friends, some of whom will now share some recollections with us. They will be in order, and I will call them up each in turn. Dara, accompanied by Lily and Max, followed by Jeff Ross, then Gino Salamone, Susie Essman, Alan Zweibel, and Frank Santopadre. Now invite Dara to come forward.
Yeah, you could sit down. My heart is racing. Not even on the paper. I just want to start by saying how my last say bad word. Unfucking believable my friends have been. Oh, how you can't hear me, Mom? How unbelievable my friends have been, and how much support I have felt from my friends in the comedy community, and I feel like this whole thing is surreal, and I've been carried through this, and I could not have done this without you guys. Seriously, thank you so much. And if there wasn't COVID, I would have everyone hold hands and sing Kumbaya right now. All right, this was really freaking hard to write this. It took me all day, and I don't even know if I'm whatever. Okay, I'm putting my. I should use a tissue and not my thing. How do you summarize a 25-year unlikely love affair? Our relationship was so special that whatever I say is not enough. February 26, 1997, I had just turned 27 years old, and Gilbert was turning 42. We met at a Grammy party at Tavern on the Green. I was there because I worked in the music business, and he was there for the free food. I guess you guys know Gilbert. I accidentally dropped food off my plate, and Gilbert picked it up and put it on his plate. And I thought it was a bit odd, but I guess I've always been attracted to people that are a bit odd. Andy, are you here? Sorry. He looked incredibly sweet and a little lost, and I felt bad for him. So I was nice to him. And then he asked for my phone number, and the rest was history. He called me 2 days later, you know, the obligatory wait a minute and whatever, and asked me out, and I was all excited because this older guy was asking me out, and I got all dressed up. And then he had me meet him at the Moonstruck Diner on 23rd and 9th. And he ordered one friggin' rice pudding for us to share. And again, I thought it was a little odd that he didn't order 2 rice puddings. But I figured whatever, it didn't matter. And in a way, it was refreshing to be out with someone who did not care at all about material things, to say the least. And did not follow social norms whatsoever. And he walked me home that night, and he told me at least 100 squid and turtle jokes. And I knew he was the man for me. And I don't know how to explain the uniqueness of our relationship. I was young, outgoing, social. Gilbert was shy and introverted. We were opposites, but like two pieces of the puzzle, we fit perfectly together. For the next 10 friggin' years, we dated. He would come over my house every night to watch TV since I actually paid for cable. We were in love. And I really wanted to start a family, but he was so scared. And he really thought that if he got married and had kids, he wouldn't be funny anymore. And he used to say to me, he was like a McDonald's Happy Meal. You can't replace the French fries with onion rings. He was who he was, and he was not going to change. And I would tell him that I never wanted him to change, that I embraced who he was, that's why I loved him. Eventually, he took the plunge and trusted me. Penn and Emily paved the way and got married first. Thank you. We finally decided to move in together and start a family. I gotta take a drink. While packing his apartment, I asked Gilbert to please try to get rid of some of his hotel soaps. Since they filled up the entire second bedroom of his apartment. He asked his sisters if they needed any soap. They said only big bars. So Gilbert, being Gilbert, stayed up the entire friggin' night, opening up the little wrappers, running the soaps under the water in the sink, mashing them together to make big bars. The next day, he gave his sisters a garbage bag full of custom-made hotel big bars. I thought that was so sweet, and I couldn't help but love him. Another example of how sweet he was that we lived around the block from the school for the blind. Gilbert would always stop and ask if they needed help crossing the street. I loved his heart and soul. His jokes were dirty, but his heart was so pure and beautiful. We married and had 2 beautiful children. He was the best father and loved our kids more than anything in the world. He was so sweet. He would paint Lily's nails and put little notes with monster faces in Max's lunchbox. He was so proud of the kids. I remember one time Max was 3 years old, and he went to the diner with Gilbert. And Max pointed to the guy at the other table and told Gilbert, "That guy looks like Lon Chaney Jr." And Gilbert was so proud. 15 more years and 2 kids. A little network wife swapping for TV. I turned out to be right. He didn't lose his comedy, and our marriage was a huge success. And the New York Times wrote an article about us. Thank you, Andrew, for reminding me. And I guess I said I knew I'd never find anyone else like him. And he replied, "Most people are hoping that they never find anyone like me." Gilbert, you were wrong. I'm so glad that I found you. I love you, Gilbert. Thank you. No, you can't.
Thank you, Dara. Next, we will hear from Jeff Ross.
Hi, everybody. Goodbye, Gilbert. Goodbye, my brother. I still can't believe it. Once again, you're leaving us with the check. Gilbert is survived by his wife, his sister, 2 great kids, and over 12,000 little bottles of shampoo that he took from hotel rooms. Congrats, Gilbert. You're the first person in history to be buried with dental floss in your pocket. What a unique person. What an incredible life. Come on, folks, give it up one last time for Gilbert Gottfried. 50 years in show business. 50 years. He went on stage as a teenager and he never stopped. He was supposed to do a show last week. This man has been making people laugh for half a century. What a mitzvah. What a mission in life. What a purpose to have in this world. Think about how many laughs he must have gotten from every person at every show, live and on TV and in the movies. How many laughs is that? 1 million? 1 billion? And he wasn't just regular funny, he was hilarious. He was daring and provocative and subversive and so lovable that he could get away with jokes about skull fucking a dead person. Not so funny now, huh, Gilbert? I admired him because he was fearless. He brought light to the world's darkest secrets. Gilbert took the pain out of our worst tragedies. Gilbert had no boundaries, and he practically started cancel culture when he got fired from playing a duck because of a tweet. Because of a tweet! But that only made us root for Gilbert more. It got all the comics and comedy fans to rally around him. And Gilbert, I hope right now, wherever you are drowning in this tsunami of love from your fans all over the world, except maybe Japan. Not too long ago, I was producing a show for Netflix where we roast historical figures. I called Gilbert and I said, hey, I'm doing an episode about World War II and John Lovitz is going to play Roosevelt, and I was hoping you could play Adolf Hitler. And before I got the lure out, Gilbert said, I'll do it. He flew out to LA, we sent him in a wardrobe, and Gilbert walked in a rehearsal in lederhosen and the rest of his Hitler costume. And then we broke for lunch and he still was wearing the swastika on his arm. And then we did the show and we went to the after party and we can't get Gilbert to take the swastika off his arm. Dara, I think he got on the plane home with it the next day. And let me tell you something, he was the best Hitler ever. He was so funny that night. Mel Brooks once said, comedy is revenge through ridicule. And what better way to ridicule the Nazis than having their Führer portrayed by the loudest, most obnoxious Jew in history. It was cathartic. Gilbert was catharsis incarnate. When he screamed for all of us. When he joked about 9/11 at that Friars roast, he healed us. He was a healer. He made the New Yorkers in that room laugh so hard for the first time in weeks. He lifted the tension from our shoulders. He loved life. Just a couple weeks ago, he FaceTimed me. I said, "Hi, Gil." He said, "Who died this week?" I said, "Not me, motherfucker. And not you." And he just laughed. That laugh, I loved hearing that laugh. I'm going to miss that laugh. These past 2 weeks, Dara never left his side, except to go to a Josh Groban concert. Dara, thank you for taking care of him. Thank you, thank you. You made his life so much better, and then he made our lives so much better. Max and Lily, your dad talked about you all the time. And not just when he was telling that aristocrats joke. You know, as you guys know, I lost my mom when I was about your age, and it sucks. But luckily, you have what I had back then, a brother or a sister, each other, and an army of people who love you, and who all knew your dad, and we're all gonna be on your team forever. He created that for you. And trust me, the sad memories of today will soon be replaced by all the good memories. I love those videos you all made for that TV show during the pandemic. And all the times he painted your nails, Lily, or told you bedtime stuff, and watched monster movies with you, Max. He told me about all that stuff. So latch onto those memories, because they're priceless and they're free. Which would make your dad very, very happy. At 67 years old, Gilbert is way too young to say goodbye. And this all feels like his ultimate too soon moment. But Gil always had perfect timing. He'd been sick for a while. He was tired. He knew when to get off the stage. And so he did. Right before he passed, my buddy David Tell and I took shifts keeping him company. Of course, it was hard for the doctors to declare Gilbert's exact time of death because his eyes have always looked closed. Gilbert, working till the end of his life, his last words were a cameo. But I did get to thank him for being my friend. And I roasted him a little. I called him a barely living legend. And I gave him a fist bump and I left his room. One of my fondest memories is singing with him. When we were just being silly, we would break into songs from Fiddler on the Roof. It always made him so happy. I'm going to play it for you. It's only 90 seconds, but Gilbert loved music so much. Girl I carried, is this Can you hear it? Little boy I play? I don't remember growing old. Sunrise, sunset, swiftly through the years. Gil. You can hear his laugh at the end. I don't know what to say. Gilbert loved music so much. It made him so happy. I feel like he's here with us tonight. Will you just do the first verse with me? Is this the little girl I carry? Is this the little boy at play? I don't remember growing older. When did they? Sunrise, sunset, sunrise, sunset, swiftly go the years. One season following another, laden with happiness and cheer. Roast in peace, Gilbert Gottfried. I love you.
Gino Salabone.
I woke up this morning, I flew in from Milwaukee, and all I kept saying was, please don't let me follow Jeff Ross. Please don't let me follow Jeff Ross. Gilbert and I have been friends for over 30 years, and when I first met him, he was awkwardly shy, painfully shy, and then the subject of Milton Berle's big talent came up. And we bonded, and we're friends throughout the years. And there was nothing meant more to me, Darrow, than those phone calls that we would laugh so hard. And he loved Don Rickles, and I wanted to arrange a dinner or lunch with Don Rickles. And he would put it off, and then Don Rickles died. And after that, every celebrity that died, my phone would ring, and Gilbert would say, we should have maybe dinner with Betty White. And the subject of being cheap came up, and I'm just going to continue with this. We love Tony Curtis, and Gilbert did a great Tony Curtis. And Tony had a biography out, but Gilbert refused to buy it. So every day he would go to the bookstore, he would call me from the bookstore, and read a chapter as Tony Curtis. And it meant the world to me because I had dinner with Tony Curtis, and if I said a story that Tony liked, Tony would clap his hands together and go, wonderful, okay? So when Gilbert was performing and he knew I was in the audience, he would get a big laugh, and he would do that. He would clap and do wonderful and look off to the side, and there was no greater honor than that. The years passed, he met Dara, and Dara, I want to say the same thing as Jeff. Thank you so much for what you did to Gilbert. You changed his life, his beautiful family. Lily, he talked about you all the time. Max, he was never prouder. We always talk about this old comedian, Timmy Rogers, who after every joke would go, oh yeah! And when you would do that in the background after we would do it, it was like you had a home run in Little League. That's what he was most proud of. But I can't believe he's gone. And this is the difficult part because we all loved him. And we loved that energy that he brought to all of us. And there was no one like Gilbert. And I'm hoping that if there is an afterlife, he's having lunch with Rickles after the beating he's going to get from Cesar Romero and Danny Thomas. I love you, Gilbert. I bought all the dinners, was happy to do it every time because it was worth every penny. And one time he couldn't make it for dinner, so I had a message on my machine. I picked it up. He said, listen, I can't make dinner, but could you get an order of salmon, maybe a salad with some Thousand Island dressing and a piece of chocolate cake, and just have it sent to my house? I would love to. I would do it in a second. I love you, Gilbert, and I'm going to miss you forever. Thank you.
Thank you, Gino. Gilbert's sister, Karen.
Hello, everyone, on this very sad day. I don't make jokes for a living, so I just wanted to share very briefly something about my wonderful brother, and he was also a wonderful uncle to my son. He attended graduations, and whatever we needed him to do, he was there. And I know he has that image of being cheap, but not with us. He wasn't, not at all. I just wanted to share this little bit of a memory, because we would take the L train and go to our bubby out in Brooklyn. And at that time, he was becoming very famous. And people that got on the train would come over to him, and they'd want a picture, and they'd want an autograph. And I was surprised, because I didn't know he was getting that famous. And never, ever in all those trips did he ever refuse anyone a picture or an autograph, no matter who they were. And I have to say, he didn't have a big ego. He got on the subway with everybody else. But on a serious note, I wanted to point out, Gilbert sometimes got into trouble for the words he said. And I just want to end with saying there should be no censorship in show business.
Thank you, Karen. Next, we'll hear remembrances from Susie Essman.
Thank you, Rabbi. Jeff Ross's doppelganger. So if it was okay to slap a comic for making a so-called insensitive joke, Gilbert would have been without a face since 1987. One of comedians' favorite pastimes is always to tell Gilbert cheap stories. So, and I have many, many, but I'll spare you. But yesterday I was talking to Larry Ambrose, and he told me a story that I loved, so I'm just going to share his story. It was 1982. It's when Gilbert lived in the projects on the Lower East Side, and Larry's walking down the street, and there's a big Goodwill box, where you put the donations in. And he sees Gilbert, his head, dived into the thing, pulling stuff out. And he looks at him and he says, "Gilly, what are you doing?" And Gilbert looks up and says, "Shopping." Oh, God, he was so funny. No, I mean, I'm friends with the funniest people in this universe, and he made me laugh more than anybody, ever. And laughing with him was one of the greatest joys, because I never actually thought he thought I was funny, but he so enjoyed my thinking he was funny. The pleasure that he got from that. One time we were in a car. Buddy, is Buddy here? Buddy Mantilla? Buddy was driving, and I think we were coming home from Kelly Rogers' wedding, and Buddy had said, was in the bowels of New Jersey, and Buddy said to Gilbert when we got into the car, "Gil, you're going to pay the $3 tunnel." That's how long ago it was. It was $3. He said, "You're going to pay that." And Gilbert, he's next to me. We were it was like an Impala or something, with the big front seat. And it was Buddy, me, Gilly. And the whole ride home, Gil is moaning and upset. And finally, we pull into the tunnel, and Gilbert slowly takes out his wallet, and he pulls out 3 crumpled $3 bills, and he looks at them and he kisses them. He goes, and then he says, "Goodbye, boys," and he hands them to Buddy. So, Dara, I don't know if you remember this. I am known for giving good advice, usually. There are people in this audience who know that about me. And I ran into Dara, it must have been 22 years ago, something like that. We both lived in this neighborhood. It was right around the corner. And Dara was crying, and she was upset, and they had just split up, or they had just had a fight or something. And she's telling me all about it, and she doesn't know what to do. And I said, "Well, Dara, what is it you really want?" She said, "I really want to get married and have kids." So I said, "Listen, you got to move on from this guy. This is not the guy, And it was the correct advice. I mean, everybody knows that was the correct advice to give her. Was I fucking wrong? You know, if you had listened to me, Max, Lily, you would not be here. Thank God you did not take my advice, because you three made his life so beautiful. You were the thing that, like, just took him. We were all so worried about him, you know, before he met you. Was he ever going to get laid? Was he ever going to work? Was he ever going to have his own apartment? Was he ever going to do his own laundry? You know, he was completely... He would play that shit up too, though. You know, he would play that helpless. Like, I remember in 1992, we did our HBO specials together, our one-night stand. And I shopped and I spent all this money that I didn't have on shoes and an outfit. He shows up in sweatpants, you know, maybe one of those camo outfits he loved. He loved those camo outfits. And so the producers had to buy him a whole suit, you know. And they loved it. All the little, you know, girl PAs were just like, oh, he's so sweet and he's so helpless. And we'll buy him a suit, and they thought it was all sweet. He was completely manipulative. He knew exactly what he was doing. And I said to him that night, I said, you knew exactly what you're doing. He just gave that grin and started laughing. He just, every shoot he showed up so that he could get new clothes. Monday night, I knew that he was on life support. And he came to me in a dream, and it was so vivid. And he was wearing a nice suit, so I know the dream producers bought that for him. And he looked great. He looked really healthy and great and glowing. And I just was so excited to see him, you know, because I knew he was so sick. And I just shouted, Gilly! And then we just started laughing like we always did, like doubled over, crying, laughing in the dream. And that was the last image that I had of him. So rest in peace, Gilly. You made a lot of people happy, including me.
Next, we'll hear from Alan Zweibel.
A few years ago, at Gilbert's 60th birthday, there was a dinner for him at a restaurant downtown. It was a private room in an Italian restaurant. We were all seated, and we went around the table toasting Gilbert. And I remember I was sitting next to Tom Leopold, who gave the toast before me and described Dara as the best thing that ever happened to Gilbert. Then it was my turn, and I corrected Tom. I said Dara was the only thing that ever happened to Gilbert. I love this guy. I remember him from 1974, I guess it was, at the Improv. This little guy with a lot of hair, and he had, you know those circular bar trays that they bring your drinks on? He had 2 of them. And I was wondering what he was going to do. And he would go on for 20 minutes and do impersonations. You know, we have the Mickey Mouse, Ironside, and I'm going. And when I thought he did them all, he'd go, Aunt Jemima, okay? You know, the comedy community, you know, we're all sort of like a fraternity of sort. And we all root for each other, and we all know what each other does. But when a unique voice comes along, I don't know how it is with you guys, but I just sit back and enjoy the ride. I would watch Gilbert all the way back then as a teenager. And there's no way in hell that I would ever be able to do, let alone write, what it would be like if Ralph Cramden played Atticus Finch in To Kill a Mockingbird. And he would do the whole summation as Ralph with To the Moon, Alice somehow in there. My wife Robin and I moved to California for many years. We moved back 16, 18 years later, and I'd lost track of Gilbert. We just had a nodding acquaintance. I only remember the first time that I met him. It was at the Improv. I went up to him, told him how much I liked his stuff, and he looked at me, and he said, "How much do you weigh?" That stuck with me. We moved back to, Robin and I were in LA, and we had a long talk, and we figured, we came to the conclusion that we weren't paying enough money in real estate taxes, so we moved back to New Jersey. And I was now here after 18 years. I'd go to the Friars Club a lot to meet people, and I ran into Gilbert. And I think I first had lunch with Frank Santapadre, okay, Gilbert's friend and producer, and told me about this podcast. And I said, I'd love to be on it. And he told me, I said, tell me about Gilbert. What's it like? What's he like? How is he? And he told me he was married. And I went, wow. And you know how you form a mental image of what somebody's mate would look like depending upon what they look like? So I'm picturing Gilbert, I'm going, and I see Ruth Bader Ginsburg and Grandmama from the Addams Family. And then I met Dara, and when I met Dara and the kids, that's when I met Gilbert's soul and his heart and his real vulnerabilities, and I fell in love with him. I admired this guy, and I went up to him, I said, you know, we should have lunch. He said, who would pay? I said, you know, well, we can take turns, you know. And he said, well, there's going to be more than one. And I said, yeah, you know, I'll pay for the first one, and then you. He goes, no, let's have one, okay? His comedy surprised me. Everything about his comedy surprised me. I was on his podcast 4 or 5 times. I would be talking about a new book or a new project that I had, and he'd cut me off after 30 seconds. He goes, fine. Tell us about Milton Berle's cock. And I said, I told that the last time I was on your podcast. He goes, I can't get enough of it, okay? And he wouldn't give me the pleasure. We loved making each other laugh, but he wouldn't like to overtly show that I made him laugh. It was really fun. I mean, I remember there was at the Friars Club, there was a launch of a book that I had written with Dave Barry. Dave Barry flew up from Florida, okay, to do media and stuff, but he was really excited, Dave was, to go to the Friars Club. And there was a book launch, okay? There was maybe 100 people in this room, and usually these things take about 20 minutes. And I asked Gilbert to introduce us, and Gilbert got up, and he went, this book sucks. He threw it down. I picked up the book, and I went, you know, he's right, it sucks. Dave Barry picked it up and said something about taking his name off of it. And the whole party lasted 90 seconds, okay? But I loved making him laugh. It meant he liked you. And he was one of those guys, you wanted his respect. You wanted to make him laugh because you knew that his mind was different, and if you touched that part of him, you felt like you accomplished something. I last saw him about 2 months ago in Boca. I was on book tour, and Dara and Gilbert came, and they were sitting in the front row. And like I said, I wanted to make him laugh. And he was sitting there like this. Everyone was laughing, but Gilbert was this. So I go, wait a second, let me try and joke. Okay, I'll tell a Jewish joke. This was Boca Raton, so it's not exactly a stretch, okay? So I said, you hear about the 2 Jewish men on the deck of the Titanic as the boat was going down. One of them started sobbing. The other one said, what are you crying for? It's not your boat. Everyone laughed, and I went up to Gilbert afterward. I said, you like that Titanic joke, huh? He goes, yeah, but I laughed too much. Well, afterwards, Dara said, this summer, why don't you and Robin come visit us up at the Berkshires? And I said, that would be great. And as I was leaving, I went up to Gilbert, and I put my hand on his shoulder. I said, I think I'm going to see you up at the Berkshires this summer. And he said, not if you keep touching my shoulder. I love this guy. I'm going to miss him. I wish we had that lunch. I would have paid for 1,000 of them. Thank you.
last remembrances will be from Frank Santopadre.
Take the mask off. Wow. Gilbert gave me one last gift, Gilbert and Dara. I'm going to tell people that Jeff Ross and Susie Essman opened for me. About a hand for all these wonderful people that spoke, and the rabbi. How many podcasts get to have their own rabbi? There's a lot of comedy in this room, too. Tom Leopold, Alan Zweibel, Jeff Ross, Susie Essman, it's Buddy Mantilla, Dave Juskow. It's overwhelming. I'm fans of all of you, as you know. I just left Joy Behar at The View, and she said, here's a story about Gilbert. Gilbert was on our CNN HLN show that Joy hosted. He was kind of our Tony Randall. We'd call them when a guest canceled. He was always available. And Joy was in his dressing room, and she said, Gilbert, is there anything you won't joke about? And he said, absolutely nothing. If you drop dead right now, I would do an hour. Which sums him up. And so many people talked about his cheapness that I have to get one in. Dara, do you remember we had George Takei on the podcast, Mr. Sulu? We were interviewing him at the Friars Club. We did a lot of shows at the Friars Club in those days. And I get there, George is there, the engineer is there, everybody's on time. Dara's there, no Gilbert. I said, Dara, why are you here and Gilbert isn't here? She said, I took a cab. He didn't want to waste his bus transfer. And Rabbi, no disrespect, but I would give anything to hear Gilbert doing his fake Hebrew sermon right now. I'll try to make it brief. Everybody's spoken, and it's already been a long morning. I have Gilbert to thank for my career path. I was a 19-year-old kid drifting through high school, drifting generally, not knowing what I wanted to do. My father sent me to art school. I didn't really want to do that. I walked into my first comedy club, which was the Comic Strip. Oh, Jesus. The Comic Strip across town, still running. I just said Jesus in a Jewish... Gilbert would have appreciated that ad-lib. I walked into the Comic Strip. I was a kid. I was 18, 19. I don't know however the age when they first let you into a comedy club. I think Gilbert was on SNL by then, but the original cast had left and the writers had left, and like any sensible person, I had stopped watching by then. Right, Alan? And Paul? I'd seen stand-up comedy before, obviously. I had seen Carlin and the great Robert Klein and David Brenner and Rodney, but I had never experienced what I saw on that tiny stage in that cramped room on a Thursday night at the Comic Strip, a squinting, shrieking man in a Jufro. Can I say Jufro? Doing jokes about Jerry Lewis singing Pinball Wizard. Chico Marx in Psycho. Sure, we got plenty of rooms. And George Jessel, the George Jessel story starring Ted Bessel, which included the joke, the Jewish press says we loved Bessel, but only Abyssal. I didn't even know what Abyssal was. This guy was speaking my language. obscure pop culture references colliding with even more obscure pop culture references, and it was mind-altering for me. And people, you hear Steve Van Zandt and Billy Joel, and people Paul talk about seeing the Beatles for the first time, and what a life-changing, transformative, mind-altering experience it was. And I can only relate it to that. I didn't know what the hell this guy was doing, but I thought, I need to be a part of this world somehow. So I started following his career. I watched that entire SNL season, not easy to do, just to watch him work. Judd Apatow told me yesterday he used to watch Thick of the Night, Alan Thicke's show, just to see Gilbert. And now that's love. I went looking for his personal appearances. I wrote down his jokes and I memorized them. I went to see him do long 90-minute sets at Caroline's at the Seaport back when things were still new and interesting, and he didn't pray that the club would catch fire and flood, so he didn't have to go on. And he may not have been a Beatle, but he was a rock star. 90 minutes, almost 2-hour shows with boundless energies, every imaginable weird joke and idea that you could wrap your mind around, each topping the last one. Extraterrestrials obsessed with Ben Gazzara. Norman Fell somehow being mistaken for a suspected Nazi, Kurt Waldheim. And being chased to a tower by Jewish activists only to yell down, "It's me, beloved character actor Norman Fell." Turtles lacking moisture, squids trick-or-treating for plankton. Alan referenced the wonderful Trey bit. Of course, Charles Manson asking people at a party, "Is it hot in here or am I crazy?" Thank you, Yanni, for reminding me of that one. I finally worked up the courage to go up to him after a show at the old Caroline's at the Seaport and talk to him, and he was surprisingly open and approachable. As Karen said, he never refused anyone. I was just looking for someone in the business to take me seriously, and he was just looking for someone else who knew who Lionel Atwill was. And then a funny thing happened. I began to carve out a little bit of a career over time, and I keep running into this man. I'd go to a book party at Caroline's in Manhattan. There he was. I'd go to a taping of The Cosby Show in Astoria. He was in the episode. I moved to L.A., which he hated, and he didn't drive. And I ran into him at a Nickelodeon party, which is where I first met Dara. What the hell was he doing in L.A.? He hated L.A. I was driving down Ventura Boulevard on a Saturday morning. I spotted him walking in my rearview mirror. Nobody walks in L.A. Gilbert Gottfried walks in L.A. I ended up driving him to an autograph show. I've told the story on the podcast. It's a great story, where we met Pat Harrington and Don Knotts, and yes, Norman Fell. Gilbert was in his glory. A couple of years later, I worked on a show called Caroline's Comedy Hour, and we brought Gilbert in, of course, to play Robert Redford in an Indecent Proposal parody. But lots of people here are talking about Gilbert's fearlessness, and I want to talk about his forgetfulness, because after meeting him at this point 12 times, maybe 15 times, Darren knows where I'm going with this, even writing for him on that Caroline show, driving with him, spending an entire day with him at this hotel, at this autograph show, he had absolutely no idea who I was. I'd say, "Gil, do you remember me?" And he'd say, "Yeah, of course. You're the guy in the white shirt and the black glasses." And then on that Joy Behar show on CNN, and as I said, we brought in Gilbert all the time. I finally, after 20 years or 25 years of pursuing him, I got my breakthrough, and that's because Dara started accompanying him to those tapings. And because Dara had manners and social graces, and she wasn't raised by sentient coyotes, like some people, she learned my name. We struck up a friendship. To my surprise, he still didn't at that point. A bit later, she called me and she asked if I had any interest in working with him as a writer, developing new material for his act. And let's just pause a moment here and think about what new material meant to Gilbert. Because in 2022, he was still doing jokes about Senior Wences. And I'm Dickens, he's Fenster. Appreciate you getting that reference. It didn't work, of course. He paid no attention. He didn't want to work with anybody. And I couldn't, as Alan said, you could not write for this person. I could not write in his voice, but how could anyone? But it did lead to a series of long phone calls where we talked about nothing but Senior Wences and Norman Fell and Chico and Ben Gazzara. And one day Dara said, you know, I've been listening to these phone conversations. Can't you guys do something with this? This knowledge? I don't know if it was knowledge. And 8 years and 660-something episodes later, amazing. So thanks, Dara, for taking a mostly anonymous guy struggling to make a buck in comedy and turning him into a slightly less anonymous guy trying to make a buck in podcasting. There's a quick story aside that Gilbert liked to tell about our relationship that formed over the years doing the show. He would love to tell this story because he said it summed up our friendship. He'd call me up and he'd say, I can't think of the name of that actor. God damn it. The guy who who ran the House of Horrors, McDougal's House of Horrors, and Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. I'd say, yeah, Frank Ferguson. And he'd say, yeah, but there was another guy who looked exactly like him, a younger actor. I said, yeah, Arthur O'Connell. And he said, that's it, thanks, and hung up. I loved having that relationship with him. As I wrap it up, I want to point out that the best part of doing the show for me, 8 years, Dara, huh? 600 and something shows, which started in Gilbert's apartment. Quick aside, his original concept for the show was, we'll just call people and surprise them. I said, what do you mean? He said, we'll start a conversation and we'll say, I wonder if Larry Storch is still alive. And then we'll say, look, here's the number. I said, you can't do that. What if he answers and he's on the John? What if he doesn't want to be interviewed? And I said, how long is that premise going to work? He also wanted to call the show, Jeff Ross disabused us of this notion. He wanted to call the show because he knew we were going to interview seniors, the Before It's Too Late show. And Jeff, bless his heart, said, I don't think you should approach guests and indicate immediately that they're going to die soon. But let me get to the best part of doing the show, and that was watching Gilbert light up like a kid on Christmas when these icons walked in that door. Carl Reiner, Dick Van Dyke, Norman Lear, Treat Williams, Neil Sedaka, Jimmy Webb, Alan Arkin, and told him that they were lifelong Gilbert fans, or certainly Gilbert fans for years. I asked Norman Lear, I said, do you want to talk about this failed sitcom you did with Richard Crennan? He said, no, I want to talk about the genius of Gilbert Gottfried. And I don't think, for all his years in the business, I don't think he had any understanding. And we know how humble he was, and that he, yes, of course, Karen, he took the subway like everybody else. He seemed to have no understanding that he was a legend, and that Carl Reiner and Norman Lear and all of these people, that he was on their radar. And it was a gift that I was able to give him back, to do this show with him, to book those people, because Dara and Gilbert gave me the gift of putting that mic in front of me. And when I'm in my dotage, which will be starting soon, I hope to sit and listen to 600 shows and 400 interviews and delight all over again. As Gilbert experiences that love and those guests, these wonderful people, drinking the love that we had for them. So how lucky I was and fortunate to share a platform with this man for 8 years, my comedy hero. You know, Gilbert, someone spoke of a better place or an afterlife, and I hope if there is one, and we should run into each other again, I just want to say one thing. It'd be so great if you could remember my name. I love you, man. I love you. Thank
you all for being here.
He was forgetful, and yet one of his favorite ways to begin a story was, I remember. Everything began with he remembered. Big events and small, he would dig deep into his memory to remind us that Jerry Lewis was always nice to him, or that his father's store only sold one model over the years with countless bottles of glue. Gilbert remembered, and that's a very Jewish thing to do, to remember. The word for memory, zachor or zikaron or yizkor, occurs hundreds of times in the Bible because we remember. And so at this time of memory, as each person remembers his or her own Gilbert Gottfried, it's important to remember that he was real and gentle and fragile and mortal. Dara cared for Gilbert in every possible way, schlepping him and her other two kids countless places. And Lily and Max, cherish those memories, cherish those times with your father, because you are his most enduring gift to the world. He was many things to many people, but primarily a loving husband and father and brother and uncle and brother-in-law and cousin and friend. And you who loved him most and whom he loved so much, your memories of him, that's the real Gilbert Gottfried. Frank added life to Gilbert's years, and weekend at Bernied him a few times, and he was gone too soon, but he will never be forgotten because of memory. Gilbert Gottfried was a person of a different time. The people who populated his memories have been gone for years, and he may be with them now, recalling monster movies, maybe having a dalliance with Maria Uspenskaya. We who were blessed to orbit his star are changed for having known him, and for better or for worse, his voice will forever ring in our ears. Gilbert seemed to remember so much, and Gilbert, in your physical absence, we remember you. Please rise for the memorial prayer, El Maleh Rachamim. El Maleh Rachamim shochen b'meromim hamtzei menucha nechona tachat kanfei hashechinah im kedoshim utehorim kazohara harakia mazhirim et nishmat Gilbert ben Max v'Lillian shalach le'olamo ba'al harachamim yastirehu beseter kenafav le'olamim v'yitzror b'tzror hachayim et nishmato Adonai hunachalato v'yanuach b'shalom al mishkavo v'nomar. Amen. God of abundant mercy, God most high, may the soul of Gilbert Jeremy Gottfried, who has gone into eternity, find the gift of perfect peace in your embrace, together with the holy and the pure, whose light shines like the radiance of heaven. Compassionate God, hold him close to you forever, that his soul may be bound up in the bond of life eternal. May he find a home with you and rest in peace, as together we say, Amen. I now invite Paul Schaefer to lead us in the memorial Kaddish prayer.
Thank you, Rabbi. This is the Kaddish. For those of you who know it, please rock it for Gilbert. Yisgadal, v'yisgadash shmei Rabba. V'yomo divaroki riseh, v'yamlich malchuseh. V'chai echon, v'gimechon, v'chai dekol beis Yisrael, v'agolo uvizman koriv, v'imru omen. Yehi shmei Rabba mavorach, leolam ololme omayo. Yisbarach, v'yishtabach, v'yisboar, v'yisramam, v'yisnaseh. V'yisadar, v'yisalev, v'yisalol, shmei dekudusho, b'richu. Leilo min kol birkoso v'shiroso, tushbrakoso v'nechamoso, damiron v'omo v'imru omen. Yehi Shlomo Rabba Min Shemaya V'chaim Olenu V'al Kol Yisrael V'imru Omen. Oseh Shalom Bimramov. Hu Yaseh Shalom Olenu V'al Kol Yisrael V'imru Omen.
Please remain standing. This will conclude the funeral service. We will continue with those who choose to process to the cemetery for interment. And I invite now the pallbearers, so each who spoke, plus Dave Attell and David Simon, who will help accompany Gilbert to his final resting place. Please remain standing at your places until the family has had the opportunity to follow, and then you are dismissed. Thank you for sharing this moment of memory in honor of Gilbert.